I'm joined by James Perry. James, thank you for doing this with us. We got the Perry family in the audience here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks for giving me this game at Fuentes the last two games. That worked out well. So.
You're 1-0 this year, which is important.
Absolutely.
That was a big home win, and obviously a lot to talk about. But Baylor ends up winning 74-58 against Oklahoma State. This is a call-in show. Call-in shows are usually better when there's calls. 254-339-1122 is the number. If you have some comments or you want to give us a call, we'd be glad to get you on the air and get your question. So, first of all, I thought the offense was firing on all cylinders. Just really a complete performance all the way around. I do have the first half stats in front of me, and just a few things to point out. 39 points for the Bears. They hold Oklahoma State to 23. Got a little sloppy down at the end, but, Baylor was comfortably ahead by 20+. Great win. Oklahoma State is very athletic. Obviously, they're missing Musa Cisse. That's a big loss for them, but they're tough on the perimeter. They came in number 8 in KenPom in defensive efficiency, and Baylor puts up. Let's see what it ended up being. 1.14 points per possession against the number 8 rated defense. That's terrific, and really probably would have been a lot better than that if not for the last 4 or 5 possessions that didn't end well. But just a terrific offensive performance. 18 assists, only 11 turnovers. I think they had 8 at half. And then only 3 the rest of the way. What were your observations? What did you like? And, what would you like to point out?
Yeah, we came out firing, obviously. 13-0 to start the game, 16-2. The only lapse was when we took out our starters, put in that stretch, which is always hard to see.
Right.
I'd love to see Key or Adam in there all the time, but I get what Scott's doing. But we gave up the lead, 17-15, and next thing you look up, we're up 15 points again. Yeah. And what I was really thrilled with the first half, you mentioned the stats, is we finished strong. Too many games lately, we've given up 8-point leads, 6-point leads with kind of bad end of the half finishes, but came through strong. I thought that was maybe the best defensive performance we've had maybe since Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Certainly in the Big 12.
Sure.
Every Big 12 game is going to be a fight. You saw today what TCU did to Kansas State, and Iowa State almost knocked off Kansas, so I'm sure we'll talk about some of that. But strong defense.
Those guardian angels at Kansas, man, I tell you what.
I'm sure
they
had
overtime.
62 points and 62 free throws, I would imagine. But no, we finished strong. And, when you have a game where Adam and Key aren't scoring like they didn't tonight, Key wasn't in double figures. Adam barely. I think maybe 9 or 10. I think was the final. But for those two to be in single digit scoring and you win handily like that, I mean, Key was everywhere. So that was a solid game.
Yeah, talking about Keontae, I told you before we started rolling the call-in show that I thought it was one of his best performances overall, even though he didn't score. I mean, he was terrific at West Virginia. Don't get me wrong, but he has 8 points. He's only 2 for 8 shooting. Only 2 for 5 from the free throw line. I'm sure he wants those back, but 8 rebounds.
Well, one of those was in the dark. He had to take it over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We should give him a point for that. 5 assists, 0 turnovers. So now he's gone the last 2 games. I mean, you're talking about a guy that had major turnover issues. He's gone the last 2 games with, 1 turnover, which is terrific because he's handling the ball a lot. Flagler ends up with 8 assists, 3 turnovers. He cracked into double figures. He had 11 points. They hold Oklahoma State to 0.89 points per possession. That's outstanding. Just a lot to be happy about, and we need that as we go into these 2 road games next week and hopefully take care of business on the road against 2 teams that Baylor can beat. I mean, it's not going to be – nothing's easy in the Big 12, especially road games. But then you got Kansas coming to town next Monday, so maybe sets up for a pretty big game against Kansas.
We got some momentum. You went on the road at West Virginia. And, Key tonight, I was telling the kids with me that, you can really see Key growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, we know he's the number 3, recruit last year. We know he's lottery pick next year. You know that. But Scott was pulling him for turnovers. Scott was pulling him for bad defense earlier in the year, even a couple games ago. And tonight, I told you before the game, he ended up with 30 minutes.
Yep.
So he's out there most of the time now. He got a little rest when he needed it. But you can see him fired up, going for loose balls, rebounds. And that's what we need. We need Key to grow up.
Right.
And, our team's coming together. The rotation's starting to tighten.
Right.
Caleb burned his minutes tonight. I thought Caleb might be working his way out of the rotation, and Caleb burned his minutes tonight.
Great.
So Scott's figuring out, who's going to be there for down the stretch. But, next 2 games are big. We got to take this momentum out to Lubbock and up to Norman, and then come home Kansas on a 4-game winning streak.
Yep. I thought Flo played really well. He played outstanding. He ends up with 12 points and only 4 rebounds. He had 2 turnovers, but those were both offensive picks. That you love that aggression. And then Jalen Bridges was fantastic. Jalen ends up with 12 points. He has 8 rebounds. Had a block. I think he's maybe arguably the best defender on the team.
Absolutely.
He really affects things on the defensive end.
Yeah, great defense, and on Ken Palm, 134 offensive rating.
Yeah.
He's come alive the last few games. You wondered with his 3-point struggles early in Big 12 season, was he going to work his way out of some minutes? But he's hitting enough, but taking them right, playing phenomenal defense, hitting the offensive glass.
Yeah.
Almost got a double-double tonight again.
Yeah.
2 games in a row. So
and LJ, did we talk about LJ?
Not yet.
Okay,
no, he came out on
terrific.
fire.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Making shots, made that really tough shot on the baseline. I think it ended up being a 2. But then he had 14 or 12 at half. He had 16 for the game. He shot really well, 153 offensive rating, and I thought his defense was really good too.
Strong.
He had a terrific game. Probably the best he's played since the UCLA Virginia.
There was just a different energy tonight.
Yeah.
You could feel it. The crowd helped. It was the biggest crowd we've had in a little while. Students are coming back, but both ends of the floor, you just felt the energy. The bench had the energy. The coaches were fired up. When you get up 13-0, that helps. But they fought back every time and got that 20-point lead and never let it go till junk time at the end.
Right. I listened to Scott in the post game. He was very happy with the performance. So all around a great night to be a Bear. Do we have any calls in the hopper yet, Jacob?
Yes, we do. We've got Brian Cody from Eagle Lake.
Brian, welcome to the post game call-in show.
No, I'm not from Eagle Lake. Victoria.
Victoria. Okay.
I'm just reading what the screen is telling me.
Yeah, you got me.
How you doing?
Well, here's what I got to say, man. Keontae George only had 8 points. We barely had any points in the paint in the first half. Oklahoma State had 6 blocks, Tar 1, and Caleb Lohner only threw down 1 alley-oop dunk. So that's all I have to say.
All right.
Well, the one he had was pretty gorgeous. It was a long throw, and he hit it just right. He was getting going tonight.
Yeah, and Josh had a pretty nice dunk as well.
We're going to need Josh. I'm glad you mentioned Josh.
Yeah.
I know you're a big Flo fan. We all love Flo. He's got a ring, but Flo just gets beat up sometimes. He's manned up a little bit the last couple games, you can tell. But when Josh comes in, there's a new energy, and if we can keep harnessing the rawness that he has, he had a couple times where he just went straight up and didn't get called for that cheap foul, and had some really key blocks. And
I like that we rewarded our big guys today.
Absolutely,
we got some points in the paint today.
Really did.
I mean, we shot. I think we were at one point. And we might have missed like our last 4 or 5 threes. We were 9 for 24 for the game. Yep. But and at one point, I mean, Oklahoma State, on the other hand, probably made their last 3 or 4. Yeah. They end up 7 for 33, so they only shoot 21%. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we started maybe 7 for 8 from 3-pointers. I looked up, and it was just they were on fire, but they were taking smart ones. Yep. They weren't forcing anything.
Yeah, I loved everything about tonight. Thank you for the call. We have another one on the line?
Yes, we've got Lance in Dallas.
Hey, Lance.
Hey guys, awesome win tonight. It was discouraging, honestly. I found myself being difficult to get excited when we were just jacking up threes and they're all going in, because I was like, man, this isn't very sustainable. And then I was super encouraged in the second half. We really attacked the paint and drove. Do you think that'll be a trend in the future? Is that something that they intentionally really focused on, and kind of what does that look like from here? So anyways, SicEm Bears, love the show. Cheers. Have an awesome night.
Hey, thanks, Lance. Okay, I'll comment first, and I'll let you comment, James. Scott Drew and, Jacobs, they kind of run the offensive sets. And one thing I've noticed is they add things as the season goes along. Absolutely. And I think they're getting better at, the slip screens. So I think you're going to see more of the, more paint scoring as we head down towards, the tournament. They know they need that. I mean, you can't live and die by the 3 every night, but we have great 3-point shooters. So it's kind of a take what the defense gives you. Now, Oklahoma State hedged hard outside and tried to take away Flagler and George, try to keep them from getting good looks. And you just got to pick your poison. So I think our guards did a terrific job of just reading screens and noticing that the role was there. So it's going to be, more of a situation where, depending on how they defend you, if you choose this, you want to attack them this way.
I think you're right. Yeah, we took what they gave us. Early on, they were giving us the 3, and LJ hit a couple early, and Adam got one, and Jalen got one, I remember. Key got one a little bit later. we took what they gave us. And like Lance said, second half, we went more inside. I think they were then stopping the three, trying to shut it down.
Sure.
And what I love tonight, I mentioned this earlier, but Scott kept that core five, maybe swapping out Josh and Flo longer than usual.
Right.
And with a 20-something point lead, we were looking at each other a little bit saying, okay, let's get Key out of there. Let's get Adam out of there. But he wanted them to keep running those plays.
Yeah.
And they were getting it inside. They were looking low. They were taking the hard fouls when they needed to. We got to clean up the free throw shooting. We missed a few there tonight at the end. But that's stats, but those are all going to matter. I think it was 15 for 22. And missing 7 free throws mattered in a couple other games the last couple of weeks. But yeah, you take what they give us. And to your point, I think Jacobs and Scott put in a little more and a little more. Who can they trust? And they knew they had the 5, 6, 7, 8 guys they could trust tonight, and it clicked, and we never let up.
Yeah, and I love, I'm sure Oklahoma State fans were probably like, "Where's the free throws on our end?" But I do love that we did a good job of defending well without putting them on the line.
Welcome to the
giving them
Farrell.
free-
You don't get free throws in the Farrell Center.
Never, just like Allen Fieldhouse.
Right.
Thanks for the call. Any other calls waiting, Jacob, right now?
I think we got some happy fans tonight. Not too much to complain about.
Okay.
I tell you, you could really feel it. Speaking of the arena tonight, I mean,
Yeah.
I will let you
and-
know.
You and I have talked about this a lot, but the Farrell was relatively full tonight. You know, we didn't have 11,000, but
Right.
but that group of fans in the pavilion is full.
Yeah, right.
And so the energy you felt tonight, I'm sure Scott realized that he's always gracious with that,
Right.
but there was some energy.
Yeah.
And you put the 7,500 in the pavilion, and there's not going to be a lot of orange in the pavilion in a game like this next January.
Yeah.
That's going to make a big difference. And so, I know we joke about tiny arena, but taking a few seats out of there and having that full every game is going to be huge.
Yeah,
it's going to be huge.
awesome. All right, this is from Master Pierce MPH on the board. He texted me, "Hey Ashley, sorry I couldn't call in tonight. Wanted to text. Overall, much better performance. Hot out of the gate. I felt like we had more energy in our transition defense. Overall, I felt our transition offense was much improved. We pushed the ball more down, more during turnovers, which opened up great passing lanes to some of the bigs. Did you feel the same way?" Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I did hear a little tidbit. Some people recognize that D'Antoine Grimes was warming up tonight,
Yeah, I
and
did
he
too.
normally doesn't warm up. He's going to be redshirted. So I think it's – but I heard that in practice they are having him be the scout team point guard for other teams, and that he's pushing it really fast in transition. And if he scores a layup against our transition defense, everybody does push-ups except for him. So he's like very motivated to try to really help the team and get them prepared. And he came to the coaches and says, I want to go through warm-ups. I want to be just kind of get in the flow of doing this. And I hear he's doing terrific, by the way. So a lot to be excited about.
That's good to hear. I know 2 games ago or 3 games ago, TCU Scott was just losing his mind over transition defense. And then it got a little better in Kansas State, got a little better in West Virginia. I think it was better. And that may be key. Yeah. I noticed he was warming up and kind of wondered if that red shirt was coming off. I know we all know it's not. It was pretty clear, and we're not desperate. But, I did notice, a lot of positives tonight. I noticed Dale barely got in the game. Dale played that early stretch, and I don't know if there was something going on, but he never came back in. But that's that Scott tightened the rotation. So.
I did hear from I don't know. I'm not verifying this. But somebody texted me and said Scott tried to send him in. He didn't want to go in.
Okay.
I think you have that. I think Jordan did that last year. I think there's just times where players are human and they get frustrated.
Sure. Yeah.
He hasn't played well recently.
Yeah.
Really since conference. I mean, he played terrific in the non-conference, in my opinion. So he needs to get back in the flow and do what he's capable of. But I think he's frustrated. So
he is. He's still playing his D. But Langston's getting his minutes right now. Langston was a little off on his shot tonight. But if we can get Langston Love back to the Langston Love we thought we recruited, the knee seems like it's getting better. Doesn't seem to be bothering him. I'm sure it's a mental thing to get over that for a while. The brace is off, I guess, and Langston's getting the minutes. But we're going to need to keep going deep. You never know who's going to get in foul trouble or have a little twisted ankle in the game. So
for sure,
we've got to have that deep guard rotation.
Right. Yeah. And I do think Langston's improvement, Josh's improvement, it's going to be uneven because they're freshmen. Langston obviously has been in the program for a year, but he was injured. Yep. But I do think that and Keontae too. Keontae's taken big leaps recently. Just his overall game. But, as those guys continue to improve, I think our ceiling obviously is going to be a lot higher because of those 3.
Absolutely. No, you can, we keep coming back to him. Keontae's just different. I mean, you could see it. He had a spin move near the end of the game on the baseline that, as the guy behind me said, right in front of the scouts. I mean, but it's just so natural for him.
Right. And he shares the ball. Like
absolutely.
He made the right basketball play almost every time tonight, which I was excited to see.
We needed 32 for him in Morgantown, but didn't need that tonight. And like I said, he's going after loose balls. He had, 8 rebounds I think he finished with. And
good defense in addition to
5
rebounding.
assists, monster game,
No question. All right. I think I want to get to the thread, the call-in thread, see if there's any
I didn't
questions.
see anything
here.
on there a minute ago.
Okay. Yeah. So call in. This is a call-in show. Once again, 254-339-1122. Do you guys have any comments? Like, what did you guys see? You guys are Hoopers. Let's hear from you all.
Yeah, we got a couple of varsity Hoopers here in the studio.
Yeah. Yeah. Drew Perry says we played a lot better team ball. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jackson Townsend, Woodrow Wilson, what'd you see?
I really think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whatever they're teaching practice with I saw a lot of the screener. I noticed in the beginning. What's his name? Flo.
Flo, yep.
Yeah.
Ball down,
Yeah.
Right.
but I noticed the second half a lot. He was keeping it high and getting.
Yeah.
I would just say rebounding and
Absolutely. No, we got to have the inside power.
Yeah,
like you say.
they're a pretty good rebounding team.
Yeah.
Not great, but they're pretty good. And they're, we out rebounded them 41-30. To your point,
Yeah.
and to Drew's point, he said that the offensive flow was much better. It seemed like there was a lot less pounding the air out of the ball.
I agree. Yeah,
As Bill Walton would say, you don't get paid by the dribble.
there's
you
been
gotta
a lot
keep
of
it
games
moving.
lately where the guards will just dribble for 25 seconds and
Right.
jack up a shot. And
Right.
I can't remember that happening once tonight.
Yeah, they really moved the ball well. That was good to see. You could tell that that's intentional, that they're really working on that in practice. So, this is a fun team. This is a really fun team. I think we're disappointed. We started 0-3 in conference. Some people on the message boards like, oh, we're not going to make the tournament. That was an overreaction. Obviously, we feel a lot better after winning the last two, and if we can steal these next two on the road and become 4-3,
You're good.
then you get Kansas at home. You got to protect your home court, and a lot of opportunity to move up in the standings and really solidify a high seed, for the NCAA tournament. So
Yeah, it hurts to lose. They were close, and everybody
yeah.
says one more made basket here, one less technical on the bench coach. There
I-
you win the game, but you're 0-3.
Right.
You could see it in Scott's eyes. You could hear it in his voice. It's tough. And
Yeah.
These guys got back up for West Virginia. 0-4 would feel a whole lot different than now 2-3. So there's a whole lot of season left. I've never lost hope or faith in this team. We got blown out once, but Iowa State and Marquette wasn't pretty, but in the conference just the once. And
sure.
yeah, these guys are pointing in the right direction. Like
Yeah.
I said, I think Scott's figuring out his rotations. As Lance pointed out, I think we're putting more in the playbook, giving the players a little more to do when we can trust them. In a game like tonight, Scott and Jacobs knew they could trust him.
Yeah, we took a big jump up in Ken Palm.
Yeah,
We're
we
now
did.
number 17.
17, yeah.
Yeah,
What,
so that's
I think
for
we were
22.
26 before the game. Was it 22?
Maybe 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that was a couple games ago before West Virginia's 26. Yeah.
Right. So that was a big jump. And once again, just encouraged by the defense. Now you got Lubbock on Tuesday, Texas Tech. That's a team that's been struggling. I know they're playing Texas right now. Let's check on
Yeah,
that
Ken
score.
Palm says we're only going to win by one and we'll lose to Oklahoma. So, that shows you how tough the conference is.
It
I
is
know
tough.
a week ago I think they said half the conference would be like 8-10 or 9-9. So,
Right.
So it's tough, and it says we're a 1 point loss to Kansas. I mean, the next three games, you come out of those 3-0, you're in phenomenal shape.
Texas Tech is up 34-25 at Texas right now.
Texas seems to do that every first half. So
So they may be like fat and happy as we come into Lubbock. We got a call, Jacob.
We do. We've got Cam in Arlington.
Oh, hey Cam, what's going on, my man? Hey Cam,
What's up?
how's it going?
A lot better now that we're 2-3.
for sure.
I want to hear your comments, man. I know you were like the first call after we won the national championship, weren't you? Or one of the first calls.
One of.
Yeah. Let's hear your thoughts.
I thought Jalen Bridges just looked great again. I think he was like 1 of 3 or 4 from 3, rebounded really well.
I agree. Play good defense.
Adam continued to shoot good, but he also passed the ball and found open guys. Flo at the line, that was surprising. I think 6 of 6 at the line. I don't think Flo's ever done that in his life.
You know, what's encouraging about him is he started the season at the line like I want to say like 37% or something.
Yeah, he's had a couple good free throw games.
He's all the way up to
row.
60% or 59%.
He's had 2 games in a row. I think now he's missed 0 or 1. So
he's 23 for 31 in conference. So he's 74% in conference play. That's awesome. Good to see that.
No, I think Jalen woke up in West Virginia. I know they on TV at least. I know you were there in person. TV. We heard a few words with Jalen that you're not supposed to repeat.
They said some nasty stuff to him.
But I think it woke him up. I think he had a lot to prove, and that may be that game for him that turns things around. Like Cam said, he's on fire the last few games.
Yeah, I like the way he's playing. Yeah. He's a big ad for us for sure. And again, we talked about it earlier, but Caleb, even though it doesn't really show up in the stat sheet as much, I loved his energy. He's a beast to keep off the boards. He ends up with 6 rebounds in 15 minutes. That's a terrific rebounding percentage. Yep. And, he made some shots. He's 3 for 3, the dunk. He had LJ Cryer had to throw up a desperation shot, and he rebounded it and had the presence of mind to go up quick, got it goaltended. And then he had another layup, I think. A really nice, strong drive. Do you remember his other layup? Yeah,
absolutely. No, I think
played
this
well.
This was Caleb's best game. I'm sure he scored more in the game.
UCLA, played great, but
good point. In conference play.
In conference
talking about
play,
conference.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean he's showing up, and like I said, I thought he was about to lose his minutes.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where they were going because we need the height, his bulk, but he's playing.
Very happy with how he played. No question about it. Jacob, what'd you think? Thanks, Cam, for the call. Appreciate it.
I mean, yeah, it was really refreshing to see them actually come out and maintain a lead, even though they lost it briefly there in the first half. But to build back up on top of that and maintain it throughout the rest of the first half and even through the power outage in the second half, we didn't know if that was going to have any impact on the game. We remember that Super Bowl from maybe a decade ago where people debate whether or not a power outage it can really throw a monkey wrench into any sporting event, and so it was good to see everyone get involved offensively. Like no one absolutely controlled the game, but it was very much a team effort win. It didn't rely on Keontae or Flagler or LJ. Everyone contributed, and that's a really good thing to see in a team that, it's good to see them win a big game and not lose a close one.
Yeah, no question. Were you here in the studio when the power went out?
I was.
Did the power didn't go out in the studio, right?
No. That was all Farrell.
It was a campus thing.
It was on in the concourse. I stepped up in the concourse. It was on, so it was literally in the arena. But I don't know if you saw this. My sister texted me. They were watching the game, and ESPN couldn't get the feedback. They finally did. And Jacob, you may have been here, but the announcers were having to call the game by cell phone. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
they were literally passing one cell phone back and forth to call the game.
That is
for about 5 minutes. So, that being to your point, that being a 20, I think we had a 22-point lead. You feel a lot better with the power outage, messing up your momentum when you're up by 22 as opposed to maybe a 2-point game.
Yeah, no question.
Pretty lucky there, but it proves why we need a pavilion. So if you hadn't given your capital gift yet, now's the time. Right after you give your Athlete Plus subscription.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you've been very generous. You and Lydia, have given a lot to the pavilion and off to Athlete Plus. So thank you.
We still have a challenge out there for Athlete Plus. Every member between now and Wednesday, $10 from James and Lydia.
Nice.
My wife's just finding that out here in the studio.
Okay, so, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's 3 stoppages in games involving Baylor that I can remember, and I'm sure there are more. But I remember at the Heart of Texas Coliseum against A&M back in the day, maybe before you even came to school, there was a leak in the roof, and they had to stop the game because of a leak in the roof. And then we moved into the Farrell. Do you remember when we tried to kill the Aggies in their locker room with the carbon monoxide?
Oh yeah, the carbon monoxide. Yeah, everything shut down.
Yeah, so everything shut down in that game. And so that was 2 involving A&M. Tonight was, the Oklahoma State Aggies. So, the stoppage in play was, certainly. I was impressed they got the game up and going again.
I wasn't sure it was going to happen. They said 15 minutes, and it was 15 minutes.
I thought it would be an hour. Yeah. So kudos to the people that got the power up.
Absolutely.
And got everything back on track.
Absolutely. Everybody was safe. Fortunately, that happened during a free throw and not running down the court and somebody, sprains an ankle or falls over somebody. So
yeah. Great games. Were you able to catch much of the early action? Did you see the Oklahoma?
I was watching scores. My point guard had his own game this afternoon.
How'd you do?
Yeah.
You won.
No, let's not go that far.
You did well.
Yeah, let's not go that far. Yeah. We have a really young team.
Yeah.
So I saw the scores. I was keeping up where I could. keep
Yeah,
up where
kind of
could,
funny.
but-
I was watching that game, and so Oklahoma, I think, was favored by 3.5.
Yep.
West Virginia caught the ball with like less than a second, threw up a desperation three, hit the three. Final score 77-76. So all the gamblers are probably like
Right.
distraught because that ended up being a cover for West Virginia.
Yeah.
And then you had TCU blowing out Kansas State, which was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, but at some point Kansas State was
Yeah.
probably coming back to earth a little
Right,
bit. It's the
right.
Big 12. But, yeah, I was surprised at the margin for sure.
Yeah.
When I turned the game on, which was hard to watch, all that purple and that
Yeah.
hideous floor. But
Right.
yeah, they were up 20-something at one point. So,
Right. And then we talked about the Iowa State-Kansas game.
Yeah.
Iowa State really, played very well there. And, Kansas is not, like, destroying people at home
not
like
at
they
all.
normally do.
Not at all.
But
No.
their guardian angels
If
are,
not
are
with
doing their
referee
work
help,
at
yeah.
the end of the game, for
yeah,
sure.
they had, I think, 50 free throws the other night or something like that. But, what is going well with our season, Ken Palm, the fact that we're 17 again,
Yeah.
it looked like we were in a free fall. The teams that have beat us keep winning. I mean, our out of conference, Virginia keeps
Marquette's
looking good. Marquette's playing
I think
really
Marquette's
well.
going to win the Big East.
Yeah.
I say that. I've said that multiple times,
Yeah.
and I'm not a gambler, but I kind of wish I had bet $100 because they were 15-1. And after they beat us, I was like, man, that's a really good team. I think they're going to win the Big East. And now after UConn's dropped a few, I think they have a
Right.
pretty good shot. Providence lost today to Creighton, so
Yep.
I think Xavier and
Creighton hadn't been what people thought this
Yeah.
year, though. So it's
Right.
the whole. I mean, and that's what's pretty cool about this year's team. We're coming together. We're nowhere out of this thing. There's not a dominant team. Purdue looks awfully good. UConn is showing a little vulnerability. Kentucky finally got a win today, beat Tennessee.
yeah.
But
Arkansas is kind of in a free
Arkansas
fall. They
got beat
they
by
got ripped
Vanderbilt,
by
and
13.
they're kind of the hot mess I thought they'd be when
Yeah.
Musselman recruited and paid all these guys. So
Right.
they're showing it. So we're right there.
Yeah,
I mean,
we are.
like you said, I think what's going to be key for us. I'm looking way ahead, but
Right.
finish the conference strong, get one of the, if we could get a top 4 seed,
Yeah.
Right now I saw something a couple days ago, kind of a 6-7, feels a little light. I think we're going to start getting the respect that the Blue Bloods do. So we're going to get the benefit of the doubt, and we've
Yeah.
proven in the tournament we can win. So if we can get a top 4 seed, and get a nice path, it's
Yeah.
wide open this year.
Yep.
There's no one to be scared of this year.
Yeah, no question. I agree with you. I mean, UCLA looks like one of the best teams in the nation.
Absolutely.
And we've already proven we can beat them.
Yeah.
So, on a neutral court. Yeah, I 100% agree with you that there's no teams out there that just put the fear of God.
And I'm
Even
sure
Houston.
we'll bow out of the Big 12 early just to get some rest like we always do. So
Not this year.
Ashley
Adam
says he's not
Flagler-
going this year for the
I'm
first
going.
time.
I may go because Adam Flagler wants that big 12 tournament championship.
that's about that's the only thing Scott doesn't have too. So we need
that.
to win one.
We need that for him this
Yeah.
year. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up, Jacob, unless we have any other calls that are lingering.
We
out there.
actually do.
Let's
We've got
let's take it.
T-Rex here.
Oh, hey, T-Rex.
Okay. All right.
What's up, T-Rex?
Hey,
You're on-
man, it's a call-in show. I'm sitting here trying to call in, man.
All right. Glad you got through.
Oh, yeah, it's all good. Hey, great win. Great energy from the team across the board. Great energy from the fans. Not great energy from the power grid, but that's all right. Shout out to those who didn't leave. It did seem like the arena got a little thinner
Right.
after the fact, but I mean, I guess we were up by like 20-something. Also, Keontae made the free throw in the dark. That's the difference between a lottery pick and every single player on the Oklahoma State bench.
He did.
I just want to throw that out there.
He made it.
Right.
Also, yeah, man, like everybody else says, build Foster faster and make sure we have LED lights so they power up faster and get some of those in. I know we are talking about like how, all this like Athlete Plus and stuff, but maybe like we can give an NIL deal to a LED light installer and we can get LEDs at McLean just for, in case power goes out, they can turn back on faster and do cool light shows. Anyways, I'm just rambling. I'm about to get some pizza, I think, at Shorty's. But hey, let's bring this energy. We responded back in West Virginia. Big shout out to Jalen. You're talking about him and how he's responded here lately. Big shout out to him. But let's take this energy as a team. Let's go into Lubbock. They're down. Let's take advantage of it. Let's get the win in Lubbock. Then we go on the road to Norman, take a win there. And then, hey, it's Big Monday in front of the whole world, and we get to piss off some KU fans. But, hey, one game at a time. But, yeah, man, I'm just glad to know that the Oklahoma State coach didn't get kicked out, and he stopped paying players and losing his chances at the postseason. So, sick of Bears.
Wow. Well, we're not sure. Ashley and I have been here in the studio, so I haven't heard anything about that. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I love Boyden. He's a good dude. But
Thanks, T-Rex. No, you mentioned
I think he's going to get fired, though, don't you?
it's, I was talking to somebody a few days ago with the talent he's had, paid or not.
Right.
And, you have Cade Cunningham run through the program and just hadn't done anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it seems like he's a guy that everybody lifts up as a great coach because
Yeah.
he kind of revived the program,
Right.
but just never went anywhere. It feels like he's hit his ceiling.
He got screwed with the NCAA
No
ban.
doubt.
I thought,
Ridiculous.
and those were issues that happened before he took over.
Yeah, and Kansas is still fine, so don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think he's probably on the hot seat. I think
so.
Huggins might be on the hot seat.
Huggins may just call it good.
Yeah, that's what would happen. He
and their top assistant, was gone, and he said it was kind of out of his control, which is a little weird to have an 18-year assistant. But I think this may be the end of Huggins. He may say, "I'm good."
Yeah, and then I hear Mark Adams
got in the Hall of Fame.
Right,
that's what he wanted. So now we'll call it good. Yeah, Mark Adams. Well, we won't go into the internet. Mark Adams.
Yeah, but I do think that the natives are restless in Lubbock.
Absolutely.
So I think he could be on the outs as well. So you have three maybe coaches that or three jobs that would turn over this year.
Chris Beard back in Lubbock.
They would take him back.
Absolutely, they would.
I kind of feel like I don't want, I love Grant McCaslin, but I don't want another Baylor coach in the conference.
No, I agree. No, his name popped up in a Texas article I saw the other day, which I don't think Texas is going with McCaslin. I don't think that's a big enough name unless he makes a Final Four run this year or something. They're convinced they can.
I guess
get
they'll
Calipari
be gone.
and Nick
They'll be
Saban.
gone
So
in a year. So if he does take the Texas job, at least he'll be in another conference. But well, hey, thanks, James, for doing this.
Thanks
Thank
for
you to the Perrys for sitting here in the audience and listening.
Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob, for being on the board. You've been listening to a post-game call-in show after Baylor's 74-58 win over Oklahoma State. And as I always say, you can't. Well, let's see. Let me do the math on this. You can't go 35-5 until you go 13-5. So let's beat Tech on Tuesday.
SicEm Bears.
SicEm Bears.